Welcome to Straight Up Book Club. Today we are discussing Act 4 of Alex Michaelides The Fury. If you haven't listened to episodes 1 through 3, you're going to want to go back and listen to those because that's where we discuss acts 1 through 3. This act is a short one, but it's pretty jam-packed. And again, there are spoiler alerts in all of these episodes. So if you haven't read the book and you are planning on reading the book, then hold off until you've read it before you listen.
Yeah, and this one is so short. I flew through it. It was like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, we definitely could have done both acts, but I got nervous and was like, no, we're just going to do each act separately.
It's like one of those things. There's still so much to talk about, you know, even though it's like pretty brief. I feel like, yeah, like just looking at our notes, there's so much to unpack here.
And I could have kept going too, but I was trying to hold back a little bit. Before we get into it, Nat, where did you read the book and what were you drinking when you read it?
I read it last night. Down to the wire.
I love that. Good thing we only did one act.
Yeah, I flew through it. I was at home. I read it. Yeah, I just had a coffee this time and I was just reading it with my coffee yesterday. Yeah, how about you? Where'd you read it? With what?
Truth be told, I read it at the gynecologist. It was like a 2-hour wait, as always. So, I read it then, and good thing I brought a second book with me. I brought Big Swiss with me because I was like, I finished the act and I didn't want to cheat. So I put The Fury away when I finished this act and opened a Big Swiss. Definitely recommend reading that if you haven't before. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Really into it. And I had coffee with me, but I was wearing a mask, so it was just kind of sitting there. But it was a great time.
Nice. Big Swiss is so good. I think it's going to be a show or a movie soon, too. So I'm excited for that.
I feel like it would be a really cool atmospheric kind of show or movie.
Yeah, I wonder what would be set.
Maybe Hudson, New York. I looked it up after, and I kind of want a vacation there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. I know it's like upstate, right? But
it is, and apparently the author like actually lives there, so that's why I at first I thought it was like a fictitious part of New York, and then I read somewhere that the author, I guess it's Jen Began, she lives in Hudson, so I was like, okay, I have to look this place up. It looks like a very quaint little like hippie-esque town, which feels appropriate considering the content, but
nice,
the writing's amazing.
Nice.
So, as we talk about The Fury, go read Big Swiss. Oh my gosh. Okay, do we want to start with like a little bit of a summary as to what happened in this act?
Yeah, sounds good. So basically we find out about all the things that Elliot's been leaving out. It's really interesting. He starts by saying, I found this so fascinating. So I dropped in a photo of this. So let me just like quickly read this out. Yeah. So it literally starts saying, a good rule of thumb, you know, when telling a story is to delay all exposition until absolutely necessary. Nothing is more suspect to my mind than unsolicited explanation. It's best to keep quiet, to refrain from any elucidation until you have to. Now it seems we've reached that crucial point in the narrative. So I found that fascinating. He's finally admitting to it. There's so much he's been leaving out about his plans, you know, about how we came to this moment, and now we're going to find it all out.
Yeah, he does admit that. I don't know about you. I definitely wasn't surprised by that. And I feel like we kind of talked about this earlier on where he had admitted the first time that he had left something out and we were kind of like, what else is he leaving out? Yeah. And I think this is the moment where he's like, hey, here's a big thing that I left out. I still think there's a lot more to be revealed in the final act, which we'll get to next week. But so far, it sounds like there's a lot of secrets on the part of Elliot. That whole paragraph felt a little bit manipulative to me, the reader. Like, when he's like, nothing is more suspect than unsolicited explanation. I'm very like, you sure about that? This is a book. You're supposed to give us stuff. But I don't know. What do I know? All right. So it was a very weird act. What exactly did we discover that he left out?
So we discovered just the planning, who's involved in this sort of play that's taking place in real life, we find out that Leo's involved, Agatha's not involved, neither is Nikos. And we also find out about how Lana and Elliot talked about who to involve, and they didn't fully agree, right? So Elliot wanted to involve Agatha, and Lana didn't, and we find out that that's one of the reasons things are going sort of off the rails here. And then we sort of find out like what Elliot had expected to happen and all the ways that it sort of doesn't go that way.
Yes, the who they let in and who they didn't, that was a little weird to me. The fact that they let
Mm-hmm.
like a teenage boy into this, the one that they always kind of treat a little younger than he is, to act, that was a
Mm-hmm.
little weird to me. The fact that they left Agatha out, but then also that Lana, okay, the fact that Elliot wanted to include Agatha but Lana didn't, and the
Yeah.
fact that Lana wanted to include Nikos but Elliot didn't, that was all very weird to me.
Yeah, they don't really go into too much about why, right? Why she wants to leave him out, her out, and why she wants to involve Nikos. But it's also interesting because later she kind of seems like she does involve Nikos against like Elliot's intentions or desires.
She talks to him about something because we know from earlier on in the book, she goes to him and asks for a favor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he asks for like the kiss as payment,
Yeah,
which
gross.
disgusting. And then we don't really interact with Nikos much more after that.
Yeah, we don't know much about what he's been doing, where he's been throughout, really. But now he's just like a little bit of a menacing presence, but only towards Elliot, really. So that's why I was wondering, like, is this related to the favor? What do you think?
I do. I think that it's interesting because even though it's going through all the like, sorry, even though Elliot and Lana are having this moment where they're discussing, you know, who they're going to involve and who they're not going to involve, it's very clear that they're not on the same page, which is opportunity for deceit. Like, if they're deceiving everyone else, why wouldn't they deceive each other? And if she wants Nikos involved, he wants Agatha involved, like, you know, there's something going on. I don't know if we have all the information of what happens behind the scenes, but I definitely think that Lana goes against Elliot here and gets him involved, because his excuse for not including him was so flippant. It was very like, oh, too many cooks. Like, it wasn't really thought through for the kind of charade that they're undertaking.
Yeah.
And she just says, oh, I guess you're right, something to that effect. But it almost feels so dismissive so quickly that something else had to have happened there. And I can only imagine it would be that moment when she goes to him and asks for a favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It's also interesting how I think that Leo might have been a compromise because like Lana doesn't really seem fully confident in his abilities. We know that from early on when he went to her about the acting school that he wanted to apply to. Um, but she's okay with him being part of it, and he's doing a spectacular job.
She's the one who wants him to be in it, right? And Elliot is the
Yeah.
one who is skeptical.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
but then later Elliot kind of concedes like, oh, he's doing a great job, and you know it's he's born with it, sort of thing. You know, it's like in his genes.
It's almost a little paternal there, which is kind of weird. He's like, oh, he's doing so well. Like, it's clearly in his genes, like the kind of the way that only a parent thinks about a kid. I
Yeah,
thought that part was a bit weird, a little creepy. I don't know. Elliot creeps me out.
it's so true. It's funny, like in that moment where he has that sort of paternal like moment, that's also where I thought things were starting to turn, because Lana has, you know, run after Agatha as well, just trying to figure out what's going on there. She runs into Jason and Kate, and she sees that Jason is just not displaying any feelings of just being heartbroken or anything like that. It just seems like he's he seems like calculated even in that moment. So what did you think about how she reacted there?
I thought it was too quick.
Yeah.
I don't think she gave him enough time. Not that we have any reason to like Jason or trust him, but we also have to remember that all of the accounts of Jason are given to us by Elliot, who's someone who doesn't like Jason and who we're not supposed to trust, and who is, you know, showing us that he is not honest at all. I don't know, she goes to him like in secret and watches him for what, like 5 seconds, and he's he didn't shed a single tear. I'm sorry, like when you find out someone dies unexpectedly, like you're in shock, like you don't really believe it. Isn't the first stage of grief denial? Like I don't know if he's really 100% certain that she's dead, and she's not, so I don't know, I just don't think that she gave him enough time. It would be one thing if you faked your death and you spent 6 months observing your loved ones to see how they're grieving. Giving them even like an hour, 2 hours in the evening to observe, I don't think is really a fair amount of time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's such a great point too. It's easy to forget sometimes that, oh, this is like Elliot's retelling of the situation, and it is definitely like colored by his like biases towards Jason and his like dislike for him. But you're so right. People don't just start bawling. Not always, some people might, but some people just go into like, how am I going to fix this? What do I have to do?
Exactly. Like I almost relate to that a little bit. Like
Me
Jason
too.
being like, I'm going to go find, I feel like we're very similar there. Like type A, we need to fix this problem. You kind of go into the mode where you're like, okay, what do I need to do next? Like, what is my role here? How do I, make everything at least okay? And I think that Jason is shown as this type of person who's like, he's gonna, the first thing he does is he goes to get a gun because I guess he's feeling protective and he's feeling, like he wants to take care of the situation. So yeah, I just don't think that Jason's the type of person who's going to stand there and bawl, but I don't think that means he's not grieving. I think no matter what their relationship was like, she was still his wife. So I'm sure there's a bit of like, there's something, but I don't know what that is yet. I don't know if we'll ever know if it's all Elliot's perspective. No, we will. We'll know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also interesting. Okay, so there's like almost like a subset of that about how Elliot, like, this isn't enough for him. He needs to have another layer of manipulation, and he needs to have, and I think this is the part that Lana doesn't know about, but he needs to go to Kate and make Kate feel as though Jason was trying to kill her, and ended up, killing Lana, and that's what that shawl was all about. We find that out now. You brought that up last episode too, and yeah, that's his like final moment of manipulation, and he almost describes it as like this is that sort of like that moment that needs to go perfectly to kind of clinch the deal.
The fact that he's still doing this is so, I guess what Gen Z would call like delulu.
Yeah.
Like his plan isn't going according to plan. Like Lana got up and she left. He should have abandoned this. This is very like the show must go on.
Yeah, it really is.
He is not giving at all. He's like, oh, well, that didn't work out, but that's fine because I have this other part of the plan where like Kate's going to kill Jason. It's still going to happen. Like he has lost his mind, and he's still following through that, even though Lana is running around the island after Agatha, this person who's supposed to be dead. She's now like throwing highballs at the house. Like, what was it? I didn't realize until he wrote it. It was like, oh, there's Lana's corpse, but I guess they must have like painted her or something, or added blood, or so she looks like this deceased person, drinking, smoking, waiting for all other chaos to ensue. Meanwhile, Elliot is still trying to follow through with the rest of this plan. Yeah.
She's like giving up, and he's like, what else can we do? How else can we like make sure Jason isn't in the picture anymore?
Yeah. Elliot's also, it's so funny. I think he's the type of person who thinks that like, oh, if Jason's out of the way, Lana will marry me. Like, she's not in love with you. She's already said that. She's laughed in your face about that. But he's still under this impression that, like, if Jason's not in the picture, Lana will turn to me and we'll be together forever. He is Delulu, 100%.
Yeah, that moment was really cringe, where he just, like, goes up to her, like, marry me instead. Who does, like, that doesn't happen.
It's not romantic. It's just gross. So he gives Kate the gun, correct? He goes and he finds her in the summer house or pool house.
Pool house, yeah.
And he convinces her that Jason was trying to kill Kate, which is what you were saying. That's why the shawl was there, because he was hoping that shawl would make Kate believe that Jason was trying to kill Kate, and the shawl was the thing that messed him up.
Yeah.
It's so strange. And I guess she buys it momentarily, or at least a little bit, because she takes the gun and she does go down to the pier where Jason is. And she does kind of lift the gun to him at one point, and it seems like she might or might not kill him. But then I'm actually blanking on what happens next. Like, why doesn't she end up shooting him? Does Nikos get involved?
So that was interesting, right? Because there was the fake scene and the real scene. So in the fake scene, yeah, I want to talk about that too. I want to talk about your thoughts on that as like a plot device too, because it's the first time that's happened. So maybe let's go into that first.
Yeah. So all of that was fake, right? Because it was like he said, yeah, he paints this picture of Kate going up and then like going to kill Jason, and then it's like, oh, Jason's been shot, and then he's like, just kidding, none of that happened. It's how I wanted it to happen.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of annoyed by that. I was just like, this entire scene, and now you're saying like this didn't really happen. And I was just like, it's one thing to be like omitting things, but it's a whole other thing to just kind of be like, oh, that didn't happen.
We could get to the end of this book and he'll be like, I made the whole thing up. And it's like, well, of course he did. Morty's here. Say hi, Morty. He's less asthmatic today, so can't hear him. Okay, yeah. The fake scene. So how much of that was fake? Was it just the shooting that was fake? Or did you take it as like the whole scene of them going down to the pier? Because they are down at the pier together. It's really just her holding the gun up to his face and shooting him.
Yeah, I think that whole chapter didn't happen, really, because then parts of it are repeated in the next chapter.
Right.
About like how it actually happened. So I think what actually happens is that I might be misremembering some of this because it ends up being like conflated in your head, right? But I think that she went up to him and then they started talking, and then wasn't Nico sort of like, didn't Nico show up and sort of start steering Elliot towards them?
Yeah, there was something. Yeah, I don't think Elliot was planning on Nikos being there. I'm also blanking a little bit too on the two scenes as to like what was real and what was the fake one. But I think Nikos wasn't supposed to be there, but then he ends up showing up for whatever reason, and that kind of boggles the plan. And then when he shows up, it's sort of, oh my God.
Well, he has a gun behind Elliot's like back, and he's like forcing him to go their direction. So they end up being in the same scene.
Right. And then he convinces Kate and Jason that Elliot killed Lana.
Yeah.
Nikos is the one.
I think, Nico starts, I think so. And then,
maybe I gotta look this up. But also, now I'm having this new theory.
Yeah.
As we're discussing, maybe Lana actually wanted Nikos to blame Elliot for everything. And Lana...
Oh.
Okay, but I need to make sure this makes sense. Okay, 1 second. Sorry.
No, so it's like, it's Kate, right? Kate is suddenly like, oh, it had to be Elliot. And Kate is really adamant that they have this moment of justice.
Right. Okay, here we go. So it's like, okay. So it's in chapter 9 of this act. So he's watching Kate climb the jetty steps. This is when he starts to tell the truth as to what happened. And Nikos was there standing behind him holding a gun at him. And he's kind of telling him to like back off. I thought Jason told you to stay at the cottage because that was the plan, that Jason would tell Nico to stay inside because that would help this whole act where Kate kills Jason. And Nikos is kind of getting Jason to go towards the jetty, I guess. So he's walking towards that. And Elliot's thinking like, damn him, he's ruining everything. Like Nikos is kind of ruining this whole plan. And when he gets to the jetty steps, he comes face to face with Kate and Jason, and Kate's still holding the gun. Jason didn't seem to object. She turns to Jason and says, he said Nikos was dead. He said you killed him. That's what happened. So I had to reread that chapter. But essentially, they show up with Nikos. Kate's like, what the fuck? Like, you said that
Oh yeah,
Nikos was dead.
Yeah.
You're lying. You're actually the killer. And that's when she's like, you're a snake. I kept thinking you were going to hiss. Like, she actually gets very dramatic in this moment. And then that's when they all start kind of ganging up on him and telling him that, you know, he's the killer.
And that's when Agatha, like shows up and says also that, Elliot killed Lana, but she knows that Lana's not dead. So, like, what's going on? Like, is Lana dead? Like, is Agatha, like, does Agatha have her own sort of agenda now? And, like, because she says, you know, God's going to punish you. Is she, like, trying to make that happen in some way?
Yeah, it's really interesting because if Lana's still alive and they do kill Elliot thinking that he killed Lana, they're all going to find out very soon that Lana's still alive. So Agatha's motive is a little different. Like, she wants Elliot dead. You brought up something in your notes, which I hadn't considered, but I do think is really interesting. Is she also in love with Lana? Because if that's the case, and she's also like, well, if Elliot's gone and Jason's gone, I'm next. Like, I don't know what's up with all these people. Like, it's definitely a possibility. But there is a moment, she does take Lana's death really hard. And when Lana chases after her and she shows up in the room, she does say to Lana, you know, what does she say? Like, you broke my heart. Yeah. I loved you. And then she gets really angry.
It's a big reaction.
Yes.
Yeah, she says something about how she sees how self-deluded and selfish she is, but she looks past it because she loves her. And like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe everyone is just trying to get everyone out of the way.
Yeah, I don't know. It was strange. Like, she is, what does she say to her about how angry she is with her? Like, she says something like, God will punish. Did she say that to her, or was that to Elliot, or both?
Well, I think that Lana said that later to Elliot, that Agatha wants us to stop. Yeah, and just kind of seems like, I don't know what happened to get Lana to stop because of something that Agatha said, because Lana hasn't struck me as the sort of person who listens to other people when they want something. She has her own sort of idea of what should happen, and she goes along with it. I don't think she's really swayed by other people. Not really.
I don't think so either. And the more that we talk about this, and the more I think back to previous conversations, I'm starting to wonder if Lana's the villain. Like, if she has them all wrapped around her finger, she asks Nikos for a favor, if she has a conversation with Agatha, does she not convince them all that, like, Elliot's to blame for everything? They need to be rid of him. And if they all agree and they all get rid of him together and Lana's orchestrating this, sorry, I'm having a moment. Is Elliot the, like, faux orchestrator of all this? And really it's Lana? Like, he thinks he's in
interesting. Control? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That sounds right, because okay, so one of my other sort of theories was that, you know, when there's that moment where he confesses to Lana that he had meant to, like, propose to her the night that Jason she ended up with Jason, Lana laughs at him, and then she makes this really biting remark about, I should be with you so that I can end up at the bottom of the stairs like Barbara West as well.
Right.
And so I was sort of thinking of it as like, well, has this whole thing been actually about, like, you know, Elliot orchestrating it to end in Lana's death, even though he's saying it's something else? But your point is really interesting, because now that makes me think that her remark is still really important, but maybe in a different way. So maybe it's more about that from the beginning, from her conversation with Barbara West, where Barbara kind of like puts it in her head that Elliot, you know, is out to get my money, he's out to get your money. Was that sort of a pivotal moment when Lana was like, all right, I need to get rid of him somehow, and she's been playing the long game?
I was going to say, that sounds like a very long game. But I mean, if she's a manipulator and he's a manipulator, like, it does make for compelling content. Like, it is very much a long game. It's been years. Decades?
Has it been decades? Has it been that long?
Maybe not decades. I'm trying to remember like when Barbara died, and then like did Elliot know Lana when Lana was with Otto? No, he had already been long gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, it's not decades, but it's still years. But if she's trying to keep him at bay, me thinking of Lana as the villain, a lot of things are starting to make sense. Like even the moment when she's talking to Kate on the phone and she's like, Elliot's annoying me today, and she kind of like winks at him. I wonder if that is something that Kate expects from her, and if like they all just don't really like Elliot, but Elliot thinks that he has this in with Lana, but in fact that in is a bit of a manipulation on Lana's part. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, to be honest, I don't know. I think that Alex Michaelides has us right where he wants us. You know,
So
where
manipulative.
yeah, the ultimate manipulation. I think that he's been weaving a lot of stories really effectively, and I think we're doubting everything. So I don't really believe that I know what's going to happen next. Like even at the end of this act, I don't really know if he's dead, if Elliot's dead, right?
Oh, I wanted to talk about that. Because the end of the act, he says, everything went dark and my world disappeared.
Yeah.
That to me could mean like he was shot and he's dying. It could also mean that like Lana gets shot in that moment and dies, because he's called her his world before.
Yeah.
Or has alluded, I don't know if he's used that exact word, but he has, I keep going back to that heaven hell, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That line about heaven and hell, yeah.
And being in the absence of her. So if she's not in his life, like his world is gone. So I think it could be one way or another.
Yeah. That's such a great observation. I hadn't even thought about that connection with like, yes, like it could be Lana. Like I find there's so many great moments like that. Like it's so well constructed, and you're just like seeing the same like moments pop up in slightly different ways, and you're like, oh, that's that. I read that like 50 pages ago or 100 pages ago, and like those threads are what gets me really excited about books, and like the author's doing such a great job of that here.
Same. I also wonder, a part of me is like, would we be dissecting this as much if we weren't doing this like every week? We're like, well, what do you think is happening? Like, because I think I'm coming to a lot of theories and like personal conclusions based on our discussions. I'm like, okay, what would my experience be like if I was just sitting and reading the book from like cover to cover? Would I be going back and looking at these moments like I am now? I don't know.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it's a page turner, right? Like I don't think I would go into it as much either, but that's why I love that we're doing this and like in acts, because it's almost like there's so much in there that you just kind of gloss over. And one of the things I was thinking on is like a lot of the chapters end on like cliffhangers, right? Like imagine like a soap where every like commercial break like ends with, you know, this big like revelation or something, and you want to tune back and you want to figure out what's happening next. That's sort of what he's doing here, right? Like especially at the end of this act.
Yeah, he's really good at the thriller construct. Like you're never, the only reason I'm not going into the next act as soon as I finish the previous is because I promised not to, and I'm a woman of my word. But otherwise, I think like it is very difficult kind of finishing with something like that where it's like a bang went off and my world went dark. Like in no other situation would I be like not going to the next page. But I'm showing restraint. I'm always bringing another book with me if I'm out of the house. But it is difficult. He is very good at this.
Yeah. It's been hard to not read ahead, especially with this last one. I'm just like, what is going to happen in the next act? I'm so excited.
And we only have one left.
Yeah. And that one's a short one too, right? It's like 30 or 50 pages or something like that.
Yeah, it's very short. I think it's on par with the length of Act 4, if not like a little bit shorter. So, but I mean, there's a lot of pieces that have to be solved here and wrapped up. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, join us next time, next Thursday for Act 5, when we find out, you know, all of the answers to our questions that we've had since Act 1.
If any of our theories hold up, or, you know, what's actually been going on throughout.
We should have like Prosecco or something on our next one. Like we'll have like a little like celebration. And we'll also decide our next book next next episode as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so exciting.
So exciting. All right. We'll see you next time. Tune in for the final act and get caught up so we can talk about it with you.
Can't wait. See you at book club.
Bye.
Bye.